What's up guys, Todd here. Today we're going to install the SRM500 flat roof rack from Go Rhino on top of our Jeep JL 4-door. Now we're installing this on the Jeep mounting system and we're installing the 65-inch version of it, but other versions will have a similar installation. The tools I'll be using for this installation are a drill with an 1/8 inch and 3/8 drill bits and a Phillips head bit, a 5/32 Allen wrench, a ratchet with a 9/16 and 13mm socket, a 9/16 and 7/16 ratcheting wrench, and a ratchet with a T25 Torx bit. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we have the rack. I've already got it kind of laid out in the position where everything's going to go with the front and the back, the sides, and all the load bars. Now, this is a universal application, and this is the 65-inch version of it. So this is actually perfect for our application because we're going to be going on top of a 4-door Jeep that's got the Freedom top. It's going to go almost all the way up to where the Freedom top is and then cut off there. That way the Freedom top can still be removed. Now, this is the 6-bar system because it's a 65-inch, and 4 of these bars are mounting to the Jeep brackets. And so from your side here, we're going to use number 1, 2, 4, and 5 of our crossbars, and we're going to install some of the mounting hardware into the bottom of the crossbars. So let's go ahead and put that in there and get this thing assembled. Okay, so here's our number 1 load bar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this upside down. Now you're going to notice we've got some holes that are kind of machined into the rails. That is so that you are able to take bolts and slip them in. So on the 4 load bars that are going to have fastening hardware, we're going to take and slip the bolts in just like so, and then flip them back over. Next, what we're going to do is locate the side of the rail where we've got some angled holes. So we got some holes going straight up and holes that are at a little bit more of an angle. What we're going to do is line up to the holes at the angle. And then we've got in our kit some Allen head bolts. We're going to put those in finger tight, just finger tight for right now. You don't want to tighten down anything until everything is all lined up. All right, now what we're going to do is repeat the same on the opposite side, and then the remaining bars that need mounting hardware, go ahead and load those up, and also go ahead and mount all the rest of the bars to your main tubes. Okay, so I've got load bar number 1 and number 2 lined up with the hardware in there, finger tight. I've also got the mounting hardware installed on the bottom track. Load bar number 3 for our configuration does not get mounting hardware on the bottom, so we're just going to line up and attach our hardware finger tight. 4 and 5 get mounting hardware and we'll attach that. And number 6 does not get mounting hardware. Let's go ahead and get all this lined up with our hardware. And before we tighten down our crossbars, we're going to go to the ends of our tubes. Inside, we're going to notice we've got some threaded holes. Now, our end plates, they're the same whether it's the front or the back, so it's the exact same part, the exact same process. What we're going to do is we're going to slide that end plate over top of the tubes. Once I've got that in there, I'm going to rotate that over. This way, you're going to be able to see we've got a hole in this bracket that's going to line up to the hole in the tube. Okay, next what we're going to do is find our hardware. We're going to have a bolt, lock washer, and flat washer that's going to go through the bracket in the end plate and into the tube. And we're going to go ahead and get that started on both sides. And I'm going to go ahead and get it tightened a little bit to the 9/16. And we're also going to start the bolt on the opposite side. Okay, now that we've got both of our end plate bolts lined up into the tubes, what I'm going to do is go ahead and push this flat. You'll notice on this end of the end plate, we've got a tab coming out with a little hole in it. We've got the exact same thing going on the opposite side of the end plate as well. In your kit, you're going to have some gaskets that are adhesive on one side, and you're going to notice it's going to line right up to that hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel that off, get that lined up. And this is a pressure sensitive adhesive, so we want to bear down on it to get good adhesion. Do the same thing on the opposite side. Then we can go ahead and rotate it back over and tighten down our end plate bolts from the bottom. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to hold this down in place, go underneath and tighten our end plate bolts on each side with a 9/16. All right, repeat the same on the opposite side. All right, now we're going to go to our tabs where the hole is. In the kit, you're going to have some self-tapping black screws. Those are going to line up to those holes. We're going to put that in with a Phillips head drill bit. All right, repeat the same on the opposite side, then repeat the same end plate process on the opposite side of the rack. Now it's time to go ahead and tighten up all the hardware for our crossbar assemblies. To do that, we're going to use a 5/32 Allen wrench. Now that we have all of our crossbars tightened down, we're going to turn our attention to our top-facing holes. We do not have any accessories for this rack to install into the top-facing holes, so what we're going to do is plug them with the provided hardware. It's the same hardware that we use to attach our crossbars, but we're also going to include a plastic washer to help to seal. We're going to thread that down, tighten it up with a 5/32 Allen wrench, and repeat the same process on all the rest of the top-facing holes. Now that we're done assembling the rack, we're going to turn inside the Jeep and start mounting our brackets. So we're going to focus on the sport bar in the back first. Now you'll notice we've got a piece of plastic that's covering up right here. That needs to pop off. Whether you pry it off with a plastic pry bar or just pull it off, that needs to be removed and this will not go back on. Now once this is out of the way, we're going to notice we've got 2 threaded holes from the factory. This is where we're going to mount our rear bracket. It's going to mount just like that. Before you mount it, let's go ahead and focus on the top of it. Okay, now the top side of our bracket, you're going to notice we've got a couple of holes. In our kit, we're also going to have some gasket material that's adhesive that needs to stick onto that location. So what we're going to do is peel off the protector and then stick it to the top. Once the holes are lined up, push down with some pressure to get a good contact. All right, now let's go ahead and take it back to our sport bar. Now in our kit, we've got some M8 bolts with flat washer and lock washer. We're going to go through these holes and into the factory threaded holes in the sport bar. We're going to get those lined up. And then once we get both of those lined up and snug down finger tight, what we're going to do is lift up the bracket to where it pushes flat against the top of the roof. Okay, once we have it firmly planted up against the roof, what we're going to do is just snug these down with a 13mm. We don't need to over tighten them. We're just going to get them nice and snug. That way the bracket doesn't move around. Next, with the bracket tight against the roof, what we're going to do is look up through the holes where you can see the roof. We're going to take a Sharpie and mark the center of those holes on the roof very carefully. Make sure you get it right in the middle. Now we can go ahead and remove the bolts, take our bracket out, and drill our pilot holes using a 1/8 inch drill bit. Okay, now with the bracket out of the way, we can see the 2 marks that we made on the roof. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill my pilot holes. Now, just as a quick tech tip, I took a little plastic bottle cap and I ran it down the drill bit. This is to kind of help to catch anything that falls from the roof, keep everything a little neater. All right, next we're going to step up to a 3/8 drill bit and we're going to drill this from the top down. Now underneath, I actually did take that plastic cap, I stuck it up underneath the hole and I put a little bit of tape over it, and that's just to kind of catch any kind of dust that drops down in. Just keeps the cleanup down. I've actually got a couple of caps, one here and one there, just to hold the dust. Definitely not required, but it's good to keep the cleanup. So here we go, going up to 3/8. All right, now let's go ahead and get that cleaned up. Okay, next what we're going to do is we've got some thicker standoff washers that are in our kit, and they've got adhesive on one side. So what we're going to do is peel the adhesive protector off, and then line them up right over top of our 3/8 holes. And give it some pressure to get a good contact. Next, we're going to take our rear passenger side bracket. Now you'll notice we've got 2 holes here and then 3 smaller holes up top. Check the orientation, make sure our smaller support is to the outside, that it folds to the inside, and these 3 holes are spaced like that. If you got 2 holes spaced together here, then 1 hole over here, this actually for the opposite side. So next what we're going to do is line it up over top of our standoff holes. Take a supplied 3/8 bolt with washer, go down through. It's going to be a very tight fit, so you probably have to thread it in through the hole. Now make sure we can still wiggle that around and adjust it. Now let's go below and attach our bracket down below. Okay, so here are our 2 bolts coming down through the roof now. We're going to go ahead and take our bracket, slide it up over top of those bolts. Also line it up here, put our bolts back through the bracket into the threaded holes in the sport bar. Next, we're going to take a flat washer, lock washer, and nut and go over each one of these bolts. And we're going to tighten them down just finger tight for right now. All right, now let's go ahead and move up to the next bracket. Okay, so right now I'm sitting in our passenger side rear door opening. Directly above me, we got the sport bar. Now this piece of plastic right here needs to come off. In order for this to come off, we've got 5 bolts that need to come out. They're gonna come out with a T25 Torx bit. We've got 2 up at the top and then 3 down below. Once those are out, we can pop off the plastic. So I'm gonna start with the top ones. All right, now we can go ahead and pop this loose. Here we go. Okay, here is our passenger side front bracket. Now this is going to be sitting on top of the sport bar, and it's going to line up to 3 holes that are in the top of the sport bar. And then this portion right here is going to rest against the roof. Now before we put that in there, what we want to do is we're going to put a gasket on top of here, just like we did with the rear bracket. Let's go ahead and peel that and get it all lined up perfect, and press down to get good adhesion. Then we're going to flip it over, and these holes here that line up to the sport bar, we're going to put some gaskets around there just to act as a buffer. So make sure those get lined up, press down nice and tight. All right, let's go ahead and take it inside, set it on top of the sport bar. Okay, so we're back inside the Jeep. We've got our front bracket all prepped up and ready to go. Now our short end with 2 holes is going to be facing towards the rear, our long end with 1 hole facing towards the front, and this is going to be coming to the inside of the Jeep. So what we're going to do is I'm going to slide this portion in first. These holes right here are going to line up on top of the sport bar with these two factory holes. So I'm going to line these up first. Once they're lined up, I'm going to use hardware from our kit. We've got a bolt with a flat washer. It's a 3/8 bolt. It's going to go up through the bracket. Once that's in place up top, we can put a washer and nylock nut on top of that. Line up the same hardware to this hole back here. Washer and nylock up top. All right, now we're going to snug that up just a little bit. We don't want this to be too tight. We just want it to be able to wiggle around so we can still adjust it, but not with too much play. So I'm going to use a 9/16 up at the top and on the bottom to get these in place where I want them. All right, now let's go ahead and move up to the front hole and get that one lined up as well. Same hardware. Okay, now what we're going to do is go ahead and take this bracket and we're going to slide it in, make sure it's adjusted flat against the roof. Also, you'll notice that on the corrugating of the roof, it kind of comes down right here, so we want to kind of get it lined up to where it's nice and straight with that corrugating. Once it's in place, again, what we're going to do is take our Sharpie, go right up through the very center and very gently make a mark. And now, because the bracket is not in our way, we can go ahead and go up through the bracket. We don't have to remove the bracket. We can go ahead and drill our hole from the bottom to the top with the 1/8" drill bit. All right, now we're going to go ahead and step up these two holes to a 3/8, just like we did on the rear. We're going to drill from the top down, and then we're going to go ahead and get it cleaned up. All right, so now the passenger side front bracket, make sure you have that positioned properly. Again, we're going to have two holes here, and it kind of slants up and points inward towards the center of the Jeep. And also with the front bracket, you're going to have two holes that are kind of close to each other up to the front, and at the back you're going to have one hole kind of far off, and that's going to kind of point towards the rear of the vehicle. Your driver's side bracket is going to be a mirror image of this. Now what we're going to do, just like on the back, we're going to line up these standoffs and set them in place right over top of our 3/8 holes and bear down for good adhesion. And just like on the rear, we're going to go ahead and thread our bolts down into the top. And just like on the rear, make sure we've got a little bit of wiggle room to adjust these brackets. Okay, now we're back inside the Jeep. Here are our two bolts coming down through from the roof. Next, what we're going to do, just like on the back bracket, we're going to go ahead and install our flat washer, lock washer, and nut, and just get those finger tight for right now. And once you're done with that, go ahead and repeat the same process for the front and rear brackets on the driver's side of the Jeep. Well, we went ahead and installed all of our driver's side brackets, and I went ahead and also set the rack on top of those brackets. You want to center it side to side. You also want to make sure all your load bars that carry the mounting hardware are lined up on top of your brackets. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to line up the hardware to the brackets and mount those into place. All right, so what we're going to do for each corner where the brackets are, we're going to slide our hardware over to the bracket on the bottom of our rails. Lift up slightly, line those bolts up to the holes, and then drop them down into the brackets. Once everything's all lined up, double check, make sure everything is centered side to side. All four brackets need to be lined up, then we can attach hardware. We're going to use the supplied flat washer, lock washer, and nut. And then when everything is lined up, we can tighten it down with a 7/16. right, repeat the same for the remaining brackets. Okay, now that we've got the rack and the brackets lined up and tightened down, is a good time to go ahead and put sealant on our roof hardware. So what you want to do, we're going to do one at a time. Go underneath, remove the hardware. I've already removed the hardware from this one at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and pull that out with a 9/16. Then we can apply a little bit of automotive grade silicone to the bolt and run it back through. As we do that, we can go ahead and tighten down all the hardware underneath. Okay, now that we've got all of our roof hardware sealed and tightened, we're going to go ahead and tighten down all the brackets. We're going to use a 13mm for our 2 rear brackets, and we're using 9/16 on top and bottom for our front brackets. All right, now that we got the bracket all tightened down, the factory plastic goes back on the same way it came off. All right, repeat the same for the opposite side. Now just make any necessary adjustments, and that concludes the installation. If you have any questions, call the experts or visit us online at RealTruck.com.